conference and I realized, people don't know much about the unification principle. But basically, what we understand, what we always study, is that there was an ideal, very simple ideal, that Adam and Eve would have a family of God, and that family would grow forever and ever, and so on. That was the ideal of God, and although God is perfect and complete, he made Adam and Eve sinless, but needing to grow to maturity. That was part of his plan by which people would inherit the creative nature of God. All agreed with that? That's what we believe, right? And then, of course, we understand that Adam and Eve, before they became perfected, formed a relationship under Satan's guidance, and created the fallen world we live in today. But important to remember, of course, is that Adam and Eve are the same people. They're the same son and daughter of God that they were all the time. The problem was that they declined, in a way, to fulfill their responsibility. And, we understand, and we've always taught through the second chapter, that a fundamental, kind of the root of sin lies in the illicit sexual relationship between Adam and Eve, and that's true. But True Mother has, in her teaching, emphasized additionally the spiritual or the internal, that Adam and Eve rejected God's attempts to save them. I spoke about that right here in Canberra. The very evening of the fall, it says in the Bible that God came looking for his children, asking, what happened? And God was hoping that Adam would say, my father, I'm sorry. We did the very thing you told us not to do. You warned us. You made it very clear. And I did it anyway. It's my fault. And I would like to take responsibility. If there's punishment or indemnity, I will take it. But of course, he didn't say that. He pointed at Eve. Eve pointed at Lucifer. And I think this happened not just once, but many times, until finally their children were born. Remember, for a long time after the fall, there was no fallen lineage. The principle actually says Adam and Eve were in the midway position, having done nothing good or evil other than fall. So this means that there was a great opportunity at this time, even though they'd fallen, to kind of pull back before they had children, before humanity started down this dark road. Anyway, then finally, of course, the true parents come, still in the position of the third Adam, true father, third Eve, true mother, and create God's true family, including all of us, with the idea to create a world of goodness. And there's a process of transition from the fallen world to the restored world through the blessing. All agreed so far? That's our basic faith. And the challenge that True Mother is putting before us right now is to focus on this as our only and number one priority, to recognize that the time has come to finish this work. One time I was having tea with True Mother in the Peace Palace, and she said to me, before I was even married to Father, I understood something of the principle, and I realized that God is tired. The work of restoration is tedious, and it's time to finish it. This is Mother's goal is I want to finish this work so that God and humanity can move on to other things. Not just make a little incremental difference and we carry on for 200 or 300 more years at the same. Okay, so that's kind of what we believe, and I'm going to just use this side of the board here. Again, if you think about what Mother has emphasized recently, she's talked a lot about the Holy Marriage in 1960. Yeah. And she's explained that this was the beginning of a new history. Originally, of course, it should have taken place on the national level. You know, you might think back last year to the royal wedding in Britain as a kind of example. What would a national level celebration look like? It wasn't like that. Father, in fact, had to go to the police station the very day before the holy wedding. And then they began the process of blessing couples. And just as a quick quiz for you, how long, since this is a meeting about 430 tribal messiahship, I'll write that up here so we don't forget. How long did it take true parents to bless 430 couples? Munich, do you have the answer? Yes, it was in 68.
That was just a wild guess, you know. I don't know.
No, that's good, Kathy. The point is, actually, it took place a little before that, because even by then, true parents were extending the blessing to married couples, formerly married couples. There were 3 blessings of formerly married couples, even before 1968. We don't hear much about that, but of course, you know, many of the early followers of true parents were already married. So it took maybe, I think, around 66 or so, was the time when 430. Point was, it took time. It took several years, even for true parents, to reach 430 couples. It didn't just happen on the first day. In 1965, when Father went on the Holy Ground pilgrimage around the world and made holy grounds right here in Germany and in America, actually Father said originally his desire was to bless couples at that time, but there wasn't enough foundation, so he chose the Holy Ground consecration as a symbolic effort for the future blessing that he would make. And Father introduced the holy wine as the key element in changing the lineage. Now, I mean, Father is a very practical person. I'm always amazed by Father's combination of the spiritual and the practical. For example, you know, Father wants to create one family under God, and he worked his whole life for religious unity and peace and so forth. But one of his final projects was not a religious project, a civil engineering project. Let's build a tunnel and a road that goes right around the world, and people will use that road, and automatically the world will come together with that possibility. In the same way, when Father was thinking, how can I multiply the blessing? How can I let as many people as possible receive the grace connected with the marriage of the Lamb? With God's permission, he created this holy wine ceremony. And the speeches about it, I think you may hear from Dieter later, that the holy wine, because of the grace of God, because of the victory of true parents, has incredible power, far beyond what we can imagine. But we forgot about it. We took it a long time ago. I remember doing holy wine right here in this room, and how serious we were. But also, Father was not entirely, he wasn't kind of deadly serious that day. In fact, I remember him lying on the stage, giving an example of how a husband should make as much room for his wife in the bed as possible. The Father himself lay on the very corner. Like I said, you have to become like a shrimp. Okay, but anyway, the point is, rings a bell? The holy wine has enormous power, and we believe that. I want you to hold that thought in your mind. And now, Dieter, if you could rub that side of the board, let's do some simple math. So, True Mother has declared many times that she wants to bless 7,000 people in her lifetime. Is that right? Or did I get that number wrong? 7 million? 7 billion. 7.6 billion, actually. Okay. And in her lifetime. So I hope Mother won't be angry with me, but let's say, for the sake of argument, that Mother has 20 years. That would take her to 95 or 96. Hopefully it's longer. 365 days in a year, so give or take, there's 7,600 days left in True Mother's life. Okay?
7,600.
7,600. So how many people need to be blessed every day to meet Mother's goal? Simple math, right? 1 million a day. A day. So, so far in Germany this year, we've managed, 100 couples, 120 couples in 9 months, which is great, by the way. I mean, the year before it was almost 0, right? So we came a huge long way this year, and many communities held very nice blessings. Congratulations. In fact, I can tell you honestly, Germany is the best country in our region of all 72. And Russia is probably the second in terms of the number of communities and the number of members who got the courage to hold blessing. So I'm really grateful to you. You did fantastic. Nevertheless, there's a need for like a quantum change. Or we can just say, well, Mother's dreaming and she doesn't really want to bless 7.6 million people. But I always heard fathers say the same thing. Okay, so let's consider then, just briefly, these 7.6 billion people. Here they are, the whole lot. This is 7.6. So, how many of these 7.6 billion people on Earth are married couples?
Maybe 1/3 or so?
1/3?
I don't know.
How is it that only Kathy is answering the question?
I always got in trouble in school for talking too much. So.
Okay. Yeah, 1/3 I would say is a pretty good guess, right? So let's say that's 2.6 million people. Billion, sorry. Because of course some people say the blessing can only be given to married couples. That's who it's for. Husband and wife have to stand together, hold hands, drink half a cup each, and so forth. But of course, if that's really true, then, what about this other 5 billion people here? What happens to them?
Children.
They have to be blessed, right? Mother wants to bless all of these people. Of course, some of these are children, youth. And of course, the youth population of the world is growing. You know how much the population of the world is growing every day? It's growing by almost 250,000 people a day.
Say it again.
250,000 people a day. So, when you're blessing 1 million a day, that's the plus overall. So if you bless 1 million every day, but by the end of the week, you have to bless another 1.5 million just to catch up with the new people who were born, right? It's a mind-boggling thought. And then, of course, there are singles. There are seniors who are widows and widowers. And the singles, there's people who don't want to get married at all. There's
Genders.
yeah, there's gay people, there's all kinds of people. Yeah, okay, LGBTQFB. Of course, true parents don't want to bless those people, right? Let them burn. No? No, of course, true parents want especially to bless those children. They want to bless the senior citizens who are ready to transition in the spirit world. They want to bless everybody. So that's kind of the second concept in our mind. First concept, the blessing is a gift from heaven that comes one time through the true parents, and it's for everybody, without exception. Absolutely no exceptions whatsoever. You know, when we sat here on the Holy Wine ceremony, Father did not say, now, make sure you keep this a secret. Don't tell anybody you got the wine. Never share it with anyone else. Only I can give the blessing. That's not true parents' way, right? Everyone should receive the blessing. Okay, now I'm going to talk about how to do it. Okay. So, of course, you know, if every member in the world does 430 couples, I mean, that would be great, but that doesn't get us to 7.6 billion either. In fact, the 430 have to do 430, and that 430 has to do another 430, and then we're starting to get complicated. So, True Mother has asked everyone to start by blessing 430 couples, as you know. So, a lot of this depends on your perspective. If you think today I stand at 0 or near 0, then, you know, 430 is a high mountain to climb. And honestly speaking, until quite recently, I was one of these people thinking, it's too much. I can't do that. But what if the real picture was that, you know, the providence of God has been advancing and going up for a long time, and compared to where we've come from, you know, the peak of 430 is really not that far away. Also, sorry to tell you this, it's not going to stop at 430. You know, if you thought that I'll fulfill 430 and I'll retire and just have a happy life and there'll be nothing more to do, this is not in fact the case. Okay, 430 is not the final goal, it's actually the beginning. So, we've come a huge long way already. In fact, compared to God's providence, you know, 6,000 years, and Mother's emphasized this, we're right near the very peak. So, we shouldn't think this is too high, this is too much, we can't do it. Board man? All right, so let's talk now about how to build your tribe, because I have to finish quickly and take your questions. Okay, the first thing I want you to remember is the main focus. It is not me or you. You know, Mother did not say, become a tribal Messiah so that you could be even more blessed than you were before. Her goal is how to spread the blessing to the 7.6 billion people. But for that to happen, there are 3 portions of responsibility. First of all is my portion, which is to give the blessing, to let people know it exists, and to invite them to participate. Actually, only those who know true parents can do that. Second responsibility is their responsibility, the people, which is to receive the blessing. Sounds simple, but actually this is what Adam and Eve could not do. They could not receive the blessing from God. They didn't want it in the end. And thirdly, there's God's responsibility, which is to actually bless people and pour grace and mercy and forgiveness and life into their lives. Actually, we can't do that. But God can do it through the heavenly spirit world. But unless we give it, and people start to receive it, God is frustrated. He can't bless people without these conditions. If he could, he would have done it thousands of years ago. So that's why True Mother has told us to go out and to give the blessing to reach 430. Okay, so who is in my tribe? This is the good part. and you're going to be happy. Okay, number one, you're going to answer this. Who's the first people? Family, right. My physical and spiritual children. And it's like a 1B, because tribal messiahship is a multi-generational thing, also in your tribe are those couples, families, etc., that these people have already blessed. So let's say you have 12 spiritual children and each of them has blessed 12 couples, for example. You have 144 people in your tribe. It doesn't take away from them. It's like a bonus because the tribal Messiah is a multi-stage thing. So those couples blessed couples. So that's already a good thing. I mean, some people have lots of blessed children, others not. But that's the first one. Secondly, your relatives.
Thank you, Dieter.
Friends. Neighbors. Who have received at least the first two steps of the blessing. What are those first two steps of the blessing? They have to take the holy wine, and they have to receive the blessing prayer given by you. So, in order to count in this category, the important thing is that people have received the holy wine and they receive a blessing prayer. Of course, we all know that there are many stages to be blessed, but for the purposes of tribal Messiah, these first two steps are critical. That people drink the holy wine and they receive a blessing prayer. Thank you very much. And this can take place in many ways, but I would suggest to you that the important thing is to get out and start. And recently, I'm going to call on Fumiko in a moment. Fumiko and I went to Japan before going to Korea this time. We felt, actually mostly it was her, we can't go to True Mother again without having made some progress towards blessing our relatives. You know, we just can't. So Fumiko went at the beginning of August to Japan. At that time I was in Brazil, and I joined her maybe a week or 10 days later. And we started to systematically visit her living relatives to give them blessing, to bring them the holy wine, and to pray for their families. And you know, we thought about, well, how much should we explain about this before we do it? And we came to the conclusion, nothing. So what we did was, we knocked on the door. Of course, I should mention, my wife has been writing to these people for 30 years, and they never responded, but they know who she is. So we'd knock on the door, and we'd introduce ourselves, and we'd go into their room, and Fumiko would say, bring to me small glasses, we're going to have a toast. Just in case they didn't have any, we had some spare in our bag. So they brought the small glasses, and then I said, we're now going to have a toast of blessing on your family. So I brought out the holy wine, which was juice. We'd prepared ice cold, super tasty, poured it for everybody, and said, okay, let's drink this toast of blessing right now. So, this is within the first 120 seconds of coming in the door. Not giving them a chance to ask what is all this about, what's in that bottle, does it have 21 types of different mystical elements. That comes later. And then, with Fumiko's leading, Kampai, and we drunk it up. So they're still kind of mystified, like what just happened there. Then we kind of talked and caught up, and then towards the end, Fumiko explained, now my husband is a preacher. Remember, Japan's not a Christian country. So, we'd like to say a prayer of blessing on your family. And I would pray, and she would translate. And we would simply pray the true parents' prayer of blessing. We would add to bless their children, their grandchildren, to bless their business, to bless their descendants, to bring good fortune into their home. Actually, Fumiko can tell the story a little bit better than me. So let's welcome her up for a quick kind of testimony about this experience, because it's one that I want you to have as well. So can you welcome her?
Good morning, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's very happy to meet you. I heard that you are community leaders and people who want to do tribal Messiah activities. And this room is always our kind of a birthplace, because I just can't believe it. More than 1,000 people are here with the father with the matching pants. It's just, but anyway, this room is going to be always our special place. And it was very first time to see father too for myself. And yeah, it's a historical place for our tribe. Mike explained, it's my family, especially last 20 years, our relatives or family became really stopped visiting each other. I just kept myself to try to reach them, sending literature or sending greeting a few times a year, and whenever I go to Japan, try to visit. But I come from the north part of Japan, and mother actually moved to Tokyo, so even more my family became very fallen apart. But because of this mission as tribal Messiah, I didn't stop my effort to try to reach everybody, our relatives. And then, I think 3 years ago, we came to the point, we can't go anywhere, even however I make effort, no response. And so Mike decided, let's have a party to invite everybody, relatives. And we needed some reason to invite, so I used my mother's, just past over 90. So, okay, using my mother as a family gathering or the birthday party. All of our family came to Japan and invited. But only I invited the mother's side and father's side, only mother's side came. And 33 people came, plus our 7, the 40 altogether. Somehow, at that time already gave holy wine, but this time, this summer, before the champion, as Mike said, we wanted to do something before we go to champion to see mother. But of course, I forgot to bring the holy wine myself, and Mike came a few days later, he brought it. But I really felt that just to visit relatives is not powerful enough, but together with the holy wine, I really felt something different. And as a couple, we visited one by one. And so this power just can't describe. this Holy Mass power. And even though they never prayed, I believe there is Shinto and the Buddhism, the background and the daily life, nothing to do with God or prayer. But this, I said, a blessing prayer for your family, somehow they felt something different already. And they really gratefully accepted. And one family, I must say, one of the cousins has 4 sisters still alive, and their husbands still alive. And one of this sister, I can go quite easily to visit, and we gave holy wine and the prayer. And this husband of my cousin really felt something. This is very special, and he said that, "Oh, this room is not good enough," or "What I'm wearing is not good enough. So let's prepare something." They somehow. I felt that these ancestors really telling him something, this is different. And it's really happily accepted, they're really grateful. Then 2 days later, this sibling went to my house, the hometown, to visit my mother's the temple, because my mother died just before Vienna event. And then this cousin felt something missed. So now maybe 4 or 5 days before, he sent me a letter that somehow I missed your visit, and come back next time and say something about whatever you want to say. It just written. Somehow he felt something, missed a great opportunity. So already nearly 80 years old. And I feel that also I talked about this, about party. Since then, my relatives start to communicate to each other as well. And one of them said, let's have a party again, let's meet again. And somehow relationship started to change more. They try to communicate and welcome us. Even my brother has been really kind of a cane. He really stopping me to, he didn't want to receive anything from a church matter. And he said, don't visit anybody, he said. And so difficult. If I am an elder son or first child, much easier to operate these kind of things. But unfortunately, his big brother is so huge power in Japan, the elder brother. But he even changing, because mainly I think Mike's effort, when mother died, he is sent me by text message. It's so moving greeting combined with father's speech and everything. He changed a lot that moment, and he asked me, he didn't admire anything, oh, it was a nice message from Mike, he didn't say anything, but please write and send it to me, like command. So somehow bit by bit, very bit by bit, I feel Chuben's power is really changing to my physical realities. This Messiah activities nobody else can do for you but by yourselves. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I really have to appreciate Fumiko, because for so many years she made the foundation with no response whatsoever. Let me finish quickly. Who else is in your tribe? So, in addition, all of your contacts in other churches, this is a special privilege that we have in Europe. Other churches, mosques, synagogues, and so forth. We saw a few of those in your report. who have also done these same first two steps, at least. Of course, it's not saying that's finally enough, but in order to count in your 430, those contexts, and for, this is a big one, the 160 or the 180 couples that you blessed back in 1997, I mean, most of us did that, right? There was a time when Father commanded, give the blessing as widely as you can. In fact, just a week ago, I was reading one of Father's speeches where he said, you know, even the holy wine should be sprayed from airplanes on all the people. So, those couples that you blessed in good faith back in those days can be included. This is new information, but there has to be documentation. So, do not panic. Best, of course, you still have the list of the couples that you blessed back in those days. But if you're like Tomiko and me, unfortunately we've moved many times and we lost the list. But you can also submit your certificate. Most people got a certificate in those days for doing it. If you don't have even that, you can have an endorsement from your church leader at the time and 2 other members, 3 people. It's like the biblical idea of 3 witnesses. So let's say, for example, that Klaus in 1997, I mean, he might have been the church leader then, I don't know. But anyway, he blessed 160 couples, but he lost the data. But, you know, he really did it. And I think most of us really did our best. If there are 3 people who will attest to that, then these 160 to 180 couples can be included in your list. And I'm going to leave this here this time. It's a miracle. Okay, and a parallel tribe. In another country. And for Europe, specifically in Africa. So True Mother has asked Europe and Africa to be twinned, to partner together, to help each other. And it is just a reality that in Africa right now, they have too many tribes, too many couples. Because there are whole churches and villages and others who want to be blessed, but there's no staff, there's nobody to teach them, there's no holy wine, these things are missing. So, you can help. But you have to fulfill 3 conditions, which are, number 1, you have to report it to your church leader, and if you are one, to your next level up, and to the national leader of that country. So, what we don't want is members charging down to Africa, not reporting to anybody, kind of doing some quick blessing, leaving chaos and confusion behind. We don't want that. What we do want is disciplined, organized cooperation, and it's the official thing is a 2-stage. So you have to provide financial support for your tribe, and the same amount of financial support for a local tribe. So let's say, this means that actually a African member is working on your behalf to give the blessing to people in their home country. You can't expect them to do that while getting no benefit themselves. That would be slavery. So instead, you're supporting them to fulfill their tribal messiahship and yours at the same time with your financial support and effort. And then the last one is teamwork. So True Mother has said, I want to see every community with at least one victorious tribal Messiah by Foundation Day. This coming Foundation Day. That's 2/19. So, what's happening in many cities and many are deciding, okay, we'll make one family in our city the first tribal Messiah victim. So we'll help them. We will contribute all together to bless the first 430 couples in, for example, Stuttgart. And Fumiko and I experienced this firsthand in Albania. Albania is our providential country, but their method of blessing people is really straightforward. It's not in any way mysterious. What happens is they decide on the location, they rent a venue, often it's like a wedding facility anyway, known for that. And then for 10 or 12 days, 2 weeks beforehand, the members join together and visit every home around that facility, like in a 1 mile, 1 kilometer radius, and tell people, we're going to have a family festival, there's a blessing for your family, please come on Sunday at 5 o'clock. Why Sunday at 5 o'clock? No food involved, people have already been to their own churches, whatever. When we arrived at Sunday at 5 o'clock, people were lining up down the street to come in to this blessing. They didn't know what was going to happen. As they signed their names, they walked in. First thing, they found themselves taking a beautiful photo in front of a nice, flower arch. And they moved into the venue, and there were songs and entertainment. Then the MC is very important, said, okay, you came here to be blessed, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And first of all, we're going to sing a couple of songs, and everyone sang a song. He said, now we're going to explain to you what this blessing is about. There's a 30-minute lecture that explains the whole history of the blessing, including the steps like the 40-day separation and the 3-day ceremony. It was quite interesting because, in the beginning of the lecture, people were listening quietly, but when they mentioned the 40-day separation, you could hear people go, what? But they explained to me about 30% of the people do it. So like 1 in 3 are prepared in that moment by God to say, okay, actually, if that's what God is asking, I will do it. Well, that's not bad, right? And then before any discussion, okay, let's stand up. Holy, the scarves were put on everybody's shoulders. Everyone drank the holy wine. Kumiko and I did the blessing prayer. Then the MC came back, okay, now it's time for the special indemnity ceremony, and they did it right on the spot. And actually people got in the spirit and they liked it. And then they explained, okay, it's time to celebrate, but for those of you ready to do so, we'll see you again in 40 days and explain to you how to have your second honeymoon. The whole thing took an hour and a half, but they got a lecture, they had the holy wine, they recited the blessing vows, they did the indemnity stick, and at least they knew there's more to do if you want to do it. And all the blessed couples from that event went to the national leader so that he could become the first to become a victorious tribal Messiah and report to True Mother, in this country we have at least one. Now already they have 3 because, of course, once the national leader becomes the victorious tribal Messiah, he shouldn't say, well, I'm done now. I'm saved, and you guys, No, the whole point is that we continuously help each other. So I would like to challenge you, at least in each city in Germany, there should be 1 or 3 victorious tribal Messiahs by 2019. So, this is like multiple streams of income, right? Just to review again. So here you've got your potential of a parallel tribe in another nation. You've got this teamwork where other people are helping you build your tribe. You've got... You've got the possibility of people that you blessed back in the past. You've got contacts from other churches and groups. You've got your relatives and friends who've done the 2 steps. You've got your children and spiritual children and all their blessed couples as well. So,
Can we make a photo before you raise it?
okay, make a photo. So probably you're thinking, hey, maybe I already finished, This has been a great lecture in 1 hour. I realize I'm a victorious tribal Messiah. And not so fast. No, I have to rub it down. No, actually I don't have to rub it down. Okay, so let me just conclude here. So the first thing to know, just to remember again, this is not just about, it's meant to be about outreach and reaching new people. That's what Mother wants. So my purpose is not to tell you, hey, you've done it already, do some creative accounting and probably you already have these 430 couples. But on the other hand, it would be foolish to think if anything we did up until now didn't count, then how demoralizing is that? Actually, everyone here has probably invested many years in outreach and efforts, and it counts. If you think about God who wants to bless everyone, wouldn't he use even the smallest condition to try to reach people and bring them to his side? That's what God does, just as Satan used, no condition at all, really. I mean, everyone is born into Satan's lineage, but they didn't do anything wrong in their lives. They were born, we're born with original sin. So many people grew up, they had faith in God, they have good marriages, they love God. Don't you think God is looking for even the smallest condition to say, yeah, come on into my side, So with all of these possibilities, the chance is very great. Now, Dieter's going to talk to you about the 3 stages of reaching tribal messiahship. I'm just going to mention them now because I'm out of time. So the first stage is to be a determined tribal messiah. I hope you'll all do that this weekend. That means you commit yourself to reach this goal as quickly as possible because True Mother has asked us to do it. So if you determine, you have to take action. And the first action you take is to make your list of everybody you can possibly think of in these different groups. Who do you have already? My experience in America is everyone has at least 100 people on that list already. And the second stage is declared. That happens when you have 430 couples who have been through these 2 stages. That doesn't take too long, believe me. And then completed means at least 43 of these couples have gone through all the steps of the blessing. Dieter will explain about that later. My recommendation is you should aim to create a balanced tribe. Otherwise, you won't feel good. A balanced tribe means you use all of these methods. But for example, if you want to make sure, I think, that at least around a quarter or so of your tribe are people that are the result of your effort now going forward. So, they're your relatives, your friends, the people. You bless them from now on. You do what Fumiko did. You take them holy wine. You pray for them. You set them on the path for blessing. And maybe later, when you invite people to blessings or family festivals, these people come. And the other 300 plus, why not use some of these methods to fill that in for now? So if you have couples from the past, put them in. If you want to support a project in Africa, do so. But you can't have 430 couples from Africa and none from Germany. That's no good. And you should have people from all these. If you need help from a team, that's good. But you can't have none yourself and expect that your team is going to provide 430 just because you're the leader, Although much as I would like to say, as I see all of you here, 43 people here, 10 couples each, I'm done. No, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for genuine, happy teamwork. And The goal, of course, is to go far beyond 4:30. Mother would like you to reach 4:30 by February. Actually, everybody. And then to keep going. And what will happen, among the 4:30, there will be people prepared by God who will start bringing tens, dozens, hundreds of people more to be blessed, because the whole world should be blessed in this time. Actually, before 2020, ideally. And we may say, well, it sounds awfully symbolic and technical, but the fact is God's providence has always worked, moving from symbol to image to substance. You have to start somewhere. And True Mother's recommendation to us is you're much further along than you think you are. You can finish this. Don't be terrified by the big numbers. Believe you are already on the way. Okay, I think that's it from me. There were two questions I got before this meeting. One said, okay, here's a case study. There's somebody who's a doctor, and over many years they made a practice when people came to their clinic, they would give them the holy wine, and they would say the blessing prayer on them. Does that count? My answer would be yes, that falls into this type of category here. Certainly it counts, but if you blessed 500 couples that way, you can't say, okay, I've done all of them. You have to find the balance that's right for you. You can take some of those people and put them here. Then there was another question. What was it? I can't remember.
Single people.
Oh, yeah, single people. Yes, single people count. Single people count because they also need to receive the blessing of God. Of course, there's a lot to do. But I believe the culture of the world is changing through forces beyond our control. Take, for example, I expect most of you have seen the uproar in America over the last week over the confirmation of Supreme Court Justice to be Brett Kavanaugh. And of course, I'm not going to express an opinion on whether he did or did not sexually assault women when he was a young person. But in the last year, I think the culture in America has changed irrevocably, such that this type of sexual crime is going to be exposed more and more, and it will have to be accounted for. All these crimes against women, which men in the position of archangels have committed for centuries, that time is coming to an end because of true parents. Father said we'll live in high noon settlement, which means no more hiding. So even though, of course, that's not the blessing movement per se, but the fact is, if people recognize that these crimes and sins cannot be hidden, it's better to know that now on earth, right, than when we get to the spirit world and that videotape begins to play. Or another thing, like smoking. Smoking used to be everybody did it, nobody cared. Now, gradually, irrevocably, it's being pushed out. Gradually the evil habits of Satan's world will be exposed by truth and by common communal recognition. We're going to stop doing those things. So, I think this has to be seen in that category. Okay, I've talked enough. I was much too long. But I want to give you one final testimony. Take my jacket off. 2.5 years ago, True Mother came to America to launch the IAPP in Washington, D.C. And she said, I want to speak in the United States Congress to U.S. senators and congressmen. And this is not so simple in America, because 14 years ago, we held the coronation of true parents in the United States Senate. That was a kind of a big deal, and when the news got out, there was a lot of controversy. But when Mother came this time, she did it. Actually, we had about 80 or 90 senators or congressmen come to our event over a period of 2 or 3 days. And finally, Mother spoke in the U.S. Congress, introduced by the President of the Senate himself, Orrin Hatch. So it was like an unbelievable victory. We couldn't imagine it could be better, actually. But the next day, at East Garden, when Mother came down to breakfast, instead of having a big smile on her face, she was kind of, depressed. And you can see when anyone's depressed, right? But you know, you can't really say to mother, hey, mother, you look like you're a bit down this morning. What's up? It doesn't really work that way. But you hope that you'll find out, right? Because you want to do something. Second day, she came down again, also depressed. Third day, she came down with a huge smile on her face, like the sun had risen in heaven, sort of so happy. And she said, you're probably wondering why I'm so happy today. And I was miserable the last 2 days. Yeah, wondering. She said, well, you know, we had a great victory in the Congress, but I was troubled because I knew there were no victorious tribal messiahs in America. And this morning I got a call from someone who used to work here at East Garden, Korean sister. She said, Mother, I fulfilled my tribal messiahship. I have done 430 couples. And Mother said, isn't that great news? And Dr. Keehan Kim, my boss at that time, and me as president, were sitting at the breakfast table, and we're trying not to let Mother see that we're looking at each other saying, you hear about this? That's true, you know. So after it was over and we came out from the presence of the radiant sun of a happy true mother, sort of in the corridor, and said, is this real or is this fake news? You know. So I don't know, we better find out. So this particular sister lives in Kentucky, far away. In fact, they're what you'd call problem members. Don't ever go to church. Don't unite with the state leader. Nothing. So we went there, and what we found out was very interesting. So the first thing was there was good news and bad news. So the good news was she had actually given the holy wine to 430 people. How did she do it? She owned a flower shop. So when people came in, she said, I know you've come here to buy flowers, but I'm going to tell you, before you can buy flowers, you have to do something for me. We're going to drink this. We're going to say this blessing on your marriage, and then you can buy flowers. She's a Korean woman. If you don't like doing that, you can buy your flowers somewhere else. So, of course, most people just want to get on with it, right? You want to drive across town and find another flower. So they did it. And when she reached 430, she called Mother and said, I've done it. The interesting thing, how did she decide to do that? She was the kind of sister who'd done a lot of prayer conditions, many 40-day prayer conditions, and about 6 months previous, she was just about to begin like her 23rd 40-day prayer condition. And Father appeared to her, whether in a vision or a dream. He said, okay, enough. I'm fed up with your prayers. Stop it. Don't do another prayer. I don't want to hear it. When are you going to start blessing people? That's what I want. 20 years ago, I gave you the blessing, or whatever number. You haven't blessed anybody. You know, I'm sick of it. Because she's Korean, Father's Korean, So she started doing it. So anyway, the report came back from Kentucky. Okay, good news. They've given holy wine to all these people. Bad news, those people don't really know what happened to them, and there's certainly been no public blessing. So what should we tell Mother? Should we tell Mother, steady on Mother, we don't have a winner in America after all. Or we can help them go to the next level. Meanwhile, the Korean office, which normally is very, very kind of, nitpicky and detailed, are calling us to say, for God's sake, let this news be true. Because Mother had gone back to Korea and she's telling everyone about this victory in America. They said, you have to make it true. So what did we do? We went back to Kentucky, we worked with this couple, and we said, okay, let's organize a blessing. On Valentine's Day, 2016, I guess this was, we rented out a big Chinese buffet restaurant. Big one, not like the little one here in Canberra. And we said to her, okay, you claim these people as your couples, invite them all to come to this family celebration. And we'll pay for the food. And they said, okay, that sounds fair. Now I was thinking to myself, cynic that I am, how many people are going to show up? 10, 20 maybe? 240 people came. And when they came in, they got their blessing scarf on their shoulder, just naturally, come to our family festival. Of course, you wear your blessing. They did the holy wine again. They did about 20 people out of the 240 sort of stepped back. No, what is this? We're not part of it. But everyone else participated, and I'm coming to my last point. They did the indemnity ceremony as well, of course, and explained the whole thing, took the photos, it was beautiful. And then they asked 3 of the couples, would you like to give any testimony? And all of them gave the same testimony, which is, something happened to us after we took that holy wine back in your shop. We don't know what it is or what it was, but things started to change. Things started to be better in our family, in our relationship with our children, with our grandchildren. And it was very obvious that there was power in this blessing, power in what they'd received. Now, of course, there might be others for whom not good things have happened. I mean, life is like that. It's up and down. But the point is, they had received something that was undeniable, spiritual blessing from God. So then, finally, she came to Korea to give her victorious testimony to True Mother. And this was very interesting. Mother asked her to speak for 5 minutes, and she spoke for 5, and then for 10. Then the MC tried to tell her, okay, it's time to stop now. But she didn't stop for 20. Then Dr. Kian Kim came and stood in front of the podium, right in front of her, so that she couldn't see True Mother anymore. But she pushed him aside and kept on speaking. Then Mother said to her, look, son, that's her name, I want to hear from some other people, so could you finish now? She said, no, Mother, I have more things that you need to hear. So, that's the kind of person you need to be. Anyway, I will finish that. Thank you very much.
We have time. So I asked actually some of you to come here at least to hear his lecture, his talk or his speech. Was it good?
Yeah.
Huh? Liberating? Yes. Wow. I got liberated when I heard parts of it already in Korea. So it's a time now. They are leaving soon after that to Paris. And we're going to have a few questions now. I don't know what is our schedule actually here. Anyway, don't worry, we can always change. So there are time for questions now. And it's a great chance. Yeah, Kevin.
Stop.
Just real quick, you said something, and I didn't hear you. You said symbol, and then something, and then substance. What was the second word?
Image.
Image, symbol, stuff.
Image, yeah, okay. And the other thing is, what is with Albania? Do you have any kind of a program there where you can help them financially, or is that, you know what I mean, like instead of Africa, maybe Albania's a little bit closer to us?
It is a bit closer, but
Or is there not something like that?
it's difficult down there. Actually, we've tried there, and it hasn't actually been, it's not quite ready yet.
Well, where were you saying that they had the big blessing recently? Wasn't that Albania?
They're doing that there, kind of like, imagine Germany 1 year from now. So all of the cities are doing blessings with 30, 40, 50 people as opposed to 5 or 10. But it's not quite ready there yet. So that's why Africa has been mentioned, because there's like 2 or 3 years more, and they're really, really ready and desperate. So each of the 5 regions in Europe are twinned with 5 regions in Africa, like the French, with the French speaking. So there are countries available right now where you can help. And already in Zurich, actually, they've been doing this for some time. As I said, I was born in Africa, so I'm very inspired about this idea. But again, the idea is it's not just for you, you're kind of helping them too. And also, it can't be your whole effort. But, for example, let's say there's a community like Stuttgart. If you decided, we have 10 families here, why don't we help bless 1,500 couples in Liberia, say, for example, and we'll all share in the cost of that, and we'll also have those tribes coming to our families. that would be a very good thing. Mother would like to see that. She likes to see teamwork. And it makes no sense. It will be good for them, it will be good for us. It makes no sense to only knock our heads against the wall in places that aren't yet ready. So maybe not Albania, but other countries, Dieter and I will help facilitate that if you're interested.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we also do the blessing? Yes, can we do also the blessing which, as we did 20 years ago?
Which was?
A street, give a blessing and sure prayer and documentation.
You could,
Yes.
but I would recommend you to try to do something that's more easy to follow up with if you can.
Okay.
Of course, the advent of social media means that it's actually much easier to follow up with people because you can tell them, look, we have a Facebook page about this blessing that explains more and how to get even more blessing. So there's a possibility for people to kind of take their own effort. So again, I would suggest if your community decides you're going to do that,
Yes.
why not try it? Some communities in America are doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. Which kind of next question is possible? Michael?
Yeah.
Holy wine. Which kind of holy wine we can use for that? Is this a new latest one version?
Yes, that's right. So here's what I recommend. I recommend that every couple that wants to be a blessing officiator and to be able to do this should formally apply to do so. You can do it right here in this workshop, actually. And you can apply and then you can be approved by your pastor or your national leader. Why do that? Because I think it is important to have some structure. Again, if people just go off and do their own thing with no communication with anyone else, it's not as authentic as it can be when people actually apply. So in America, we made all of this online. Any blessed couple is authorized to give the blessing, even if that couple is itself broken. Let's say you're single, your spouse has passed away, or even you got divorced, but you yourself are still a blessed child of true parents. You have the authority to give that blessing. If you don't have your spouse with you, you could take your daughter, or your son, or a friend. Again, the point is to go out representing true parents and give the blessing. But I recommend that you have some simple system so that everyone can feel I'm officially approved to do this. Maybe somebody else behind you had a question
already.
and then you can come back with another one, but let's...
Just to be sure, when you visited your relatives,
Yes.
and they drank, you gave them a glass of holy wine.
Yes.
You didn't do this drink half, and so on. Just drink the holy wine.
We didn't. For one reason, quite many of them already, the spouse had passed away. Her relatives are quite old. But even if they were there, it seemed to us in that moment an unnecessary complication.
So you didn't ask?
We didn't. But when for example, when we go back and have our party and people come together
this
again,
is different.
At that time we may have that ceremony.
Yeah, because it's important that we have some simple methods where we start, otherwise we never start.
That's right. So that's what God told me. Keep it simple, do the first part, and remember, you can keep moving forward. Many cases, for example, that couple in America, in most cases people didn't come to the flower shop as a couple, right? It was one or the other. But imagine in your mind, you're going to take care of these future steps down the road. But for right now, get started.
And another question I have. For instance, in our community, we did like these book tables, and then we kind of provided cookies with holy wine in it, and many times we experienced people were guided somehow. They wanted, is this totally out now, this cookie providence? Or because it's just like when Father says he wants to sprinkle holy salt from the plate, holy wine from the plate, is this also a way kind of to give the people a minimum salvation or what? Or is it not anymore discussed?
I'm going to leave that for you guys to discuss how to best do it. But I was telling Dieter yesterday, one problem with Europeans, and Germans in particular, you ask too many questions.
But we don't want to do the wrong thing, because one time somebody said, no, you shouldn't do that anymore. So we didn't do it anymore.
You probably heard about the American military policy, don't ask,
Do it.
don't tell. Okay, we have one more here, and then over here.
So there are couples who live together, might even have children together, but they are not married. And how shall they be blessed as a couple or as singles?
Bless them as they are.
As a couple.
So we had an experience with my physical sister and her boyfriend. So my physical sister has been unlucky in love. She's been married and divorced 3 times. And some years ago, she met her childhood sweetheart, who was her boyfriend in high school. And he also had been married and divorced. And so they're a nice couple, they like each other, they're not married. I mean, after all these bad experiences. About 3-4 months ago, again, Fumiko, she's the holy one in our couple, she said, we have to give them holy wine. So we went up to Sheffield where they live, we made the holy wine, we had dinner together with my mother, and we said, we want to bless your couple with holy wine, and we did it. And after we'd done it, they said, we never told anyone this, but today is our 7th anniversary of being together. And you chose this day to give a blessing on our relationship. So, faced with that, I had to feel God is behind this. He wants them to be blessed. Of course, God would also like them to be married. But, our job is not to marry people. Our job is to bless people as they are, and take responsibility for it too. Yes?
Maybe typical German questions, but how many generations of spiritual children are counted? Like if I have spiritual grandchildren, does it still count that it's top generation 1, 2, 3?
It's really 2. So for your spiritual children, your grandchildren will count towards them. And for your grandchildren, their grandchildren, it's like a parent-child cooperation thing. So it doesn't extend infinite generations down. Sorry. But again, don't be too German about it. Christian.
Yeah, first of all, I would say I appreciate very much your lecture and the attempt to make it applicable and reachable, the goals. But I still struggle with one point. To me, the concept of blessing changed quite a bit in the way you explained it to what we've believed blessing does mean in the past. To me, I can only grasp it by thinking it's comparable to baptism, blessing. Before I thought blessing means restoring an ideal marriage and an ideal family. But if you say you would even bless a homosexual relationship if they came for, then it doesn't mean for me anymore restoration. It means, you can baptize sinners, you can baptize anybody if you understand something or not. That's the concept of baptism. You give it to a child. And for example, what struggle with this homosexual relationship, we don't want to bless people, we want to restore the world. Not blessing creates Chonilguk, but the restoration creates Chonilguk. Even if all people, 7.6 billion people, are somehow had the holy wine, it's not Chonilguk yet. Have we changed our ambition?
Yeah, thank you, Christian. Those are all good questions. And what I would say is that blessing people, it doesn't imply an approval or, kind of an acceptance of sinful reality. But it is like, as, Father said when he came to America, he came as a doctor and then he came as a firefighter. So, if people are sick with sin, the doctor has to do what he or she can to forgive that sin and to start the process by which people can return to health. If there's a fire raging in a house, the firefighter has to axe down the door, right? You know, if you ring the bell but nobody answers, you have to force your way in to stop the fire. My feeling is that the coming of Chanoguk is going to take some time. I don't see it as a one lifetime work. It's many generations. But there are some things that Mother feels if we do these now, the momentum, the tide will change. For example, the issue of homosexual gay couples, gay marriage, I think this will solve itself. These are not ideal relations. They will not last. But, I had a vision one time. I was on the Holy Ground pilgrimage in America. We were visiting all the holy grounds in America, and one night we came to Flagstaff, Arizona. It's on old Route 66. And driving along, trying to find our motel, we passed many broken down hotels, with like neon signs with letters missing, like hotel and moat and cattle and, dark with no lights, reception is closed. And, I just had this vision, what if God was a motel owner? What would God's motel be like? Well, first of all, surely all the lights would be on, creating a welcoming feeling, right? And I imagine the reception would be bright. There'd be cookies on the table, kind of, welcome home feeling. And the owner of the hotel would be there. And immediately God said, no, I wouldn't. I would be out on the street. I would be looking up and down the highway thinking, is tonight the day my children come home? I wouldn't be sitting behind the counter waiting for them to register. I would be out on the street trying to find them by any means. I know God loves all his children. Being a homosexual is not the worst thing in the world. There are murderers. There are people who committed horrendous crimes. Even so, we just read this morning actually, if there's even a small chance that such a child can be restored, God, the parent, especially God, the mother, is hoping for that child to turn back. It doesn't mean that, people still have to take responsibility. They still have to reach the ideal. And that ideal is coming. But, we have to do what we can. I believe this. While true parents are here, there's a special time of grace. And if we act now, it will save hundreds, maybe thousands of years later on. One day, everybody will be born into a blessed relationship. Every child will be loved from birth by two parents who love each other. And God's ideal will be redeemed. Do I think that will happen in my lifetime? I'll be honest with you, maybe not. But if I can move the needle a bit to make that a little quicker, a little sooner, I want to do it. I'm sorry, but I'm out of time. I have to go to Paris now and do the same talk in Paris tomorrow. But Dieter has many more things to share. And if you have questions that still need to be addressed, please write them and I'll do my best to respond.
Only one more.
I wanted to ask her, how about blessing second and first generation together? This time it wasn't possible, and we have very harsh conditions for the second generation blessing. Is this going to change?
I know it's already changed in other countries, and I don't want to use this particular meeting to talk more about that. But under these general principles that God would like to bless everybody, then already you can kind of get a sense of what will happen. What about third generation and fourth? Are we going to keep counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I think not. So this is an important question, but the question I came to talk about today is how to reach tens of thousands of people. How to start a blessing fire in Germany that incorporates everybody. And of course, I'll do my best to help and bless your own family situations as well. Actually, all of us have secret burdens and problems. You know, some people have children who are blessed and are now divorced, and that's a big pain. But that's not enough reason to think, well, I won't bless anyone until my family situation is healed. You know, there's this concept of the broken, the wounded healer, right? That even though you yourself are not perfect, you know, in our case, none of our children are blessed. I told Mother this when I became president of America. I said, Mother, you probably want to choose somebody else. We're not an ideal couple. Our children are not blessed. And in fact, you know, there's some problems there. And Mother said, yeah, I understand. You know, at that time, even her children were not all blessed. She said, but don't, you know, that's God's responsibility. Don't assume you're called to do because you have issues and problems that are unresolved. Everybody does. So pray for them. Pray that God will find a way in their life and move forward. Thank you.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Are you ready? Heavenly Tribal Messiah! Sunday, Sunday, Sunday!
Great. Thank you.